Since Blodia Land is the final game in our Make a Path trilogy, I probably should mention that none of these games are well liked or remembered in Japan. None of them got US ports either, which is a little bit surprising given the time period and how there wasn't really any translation to do. These games were flops in every sense of the word. Maybe Japanese players just didn't want to make paths? But I think all three of them were critically flawed in some basic way that prevented them from really getting any traction. Blodia Land is a game with a bit of history behind it. It started out as a computer game in the early 80s, and then in 1990 Tonkin House licensed it for Japanese release. There's actually a Game Boy and PC Engine version that came out before this. That said, Blodia Land is not the same thing as Blodia. Blodia Land is an arrangement of Blodia, taking the same levels, adding some power-ups and other quirks, and placing them on a Mario 3 style map. They also gave it a story and some characters. The plot is that there was a magical dragon ball, and it was broken into 8 pieces. Now Prince Blodia of Monsterland has to journey to reassemble those 8 pieces and summon the dragon. Every stage consists of a series of tracks, and Blodia has to cross all of the tracks in order to clear the stage. When he exits a tile for a track, then it becomes blank, except when it's a crossover, in which case the portion of the track that he walked over goes away. If Blodia reaches the end of a track and there's still track pieces on the stage, then you lose a life. Though the game starts out with a very generous 20 lives. There are no continues in the game, but you can hit select at any time on the world map, and you'll get a password. I recommend doing that fairly often, because if you get stuck, then you can quickly drain all of those lives away. To keep Blodia on track, there's one blank spot on the stage. You move a cursor freely around the screen, and if you hit A when that cursor is on a tile that's perpendicular with that spot, then the entire row or column of tiles slides to fill it in. This includes things like the background graphics. So no matter how nice the stage looks initially, you're free to dismantle the whole thing. Sliding some objects causes them to burst, dumping water or mirror shards or whatever all over the track. And if Blodia crosses those, he'll slow down. An absolutely vital technique to be aware of is that you can move the tile that Blodia is on. You have to take advantage of this to complete stages. Often there's just too many tiles to shift around and you have to do it too precisely, but if you can move the piece of track that Blodia is walking on so that it lines up with the next section, that can get you through. That technique is also useful for picking up the items that are scattered around the tracks. There's 7 things that you can collect as you play, and they always appear as green tiles. To collect them, you have to slide the tile that Blodia is walking on into those. Usually this is going to require that you slide the tile and then slide it right back. There's one more important thing that you need to know about walking the path, and that's the warps. There's a warp counter in the lower right, and that's how many tiles you have to cross before the warps open up. The warps appear on any square that would block your path. Usually it's going to be the edges, but there are some other tiles that it can affect. If Blodia walks into one of those tunnels, then he crosses over to a matching tunnel. Hopefully there's a track waiting for him there. If you hit start to pause the game, then you can hit select to use the power-ups that you've collected. There are 6 kinds of power-ups, and 3 of them are only used in particular worlds, where they negate the special effects of the stages there. The turtle will make Blodia walk very slowly for 3 tiles. Very useful if you have to do a lot of fast tile rearranging. The tile that looks like a paw print to me causes you to win that stage immediately. And finally, the one that looks kind of like a crown is actually a tunnel, and it causes the warps to open immediately. On the world map, you'll occasionally encounter bonus stages. Here you can gamble on how well you'll perform at certain tasks, or just play a slot machine. The bonus stages aren't hard, but I was always unprepared for them going in. Once you do them 2 or 3 times, I think they become much easier. Also on the world map, you'll note that there's multiple routes to certain levels. They do not work. If there are 2 paths to a stage, you have to completely clear both paths to that stage before you're allowed to play it. Doesn't that completely defeat the purpose of having multiple paths on a world map, you might ask? And to that I say, yes, of course it does. This is stupid. There are no boss stages or final challenges when you complete a world. You just reach the exit point and are given the next piece of the Dragon Ball. As I mentioned at the start, this is a game that nobody remembers exists in Japan. I think the Game Boy and PC Engine versions get more attention than it. Though I do think that the Famicom version is the better one of those three. Blodia Land suffers from a common problem with bad puzzle games. The puzzles are either trivially easy or annoyingly difficult. And the annoyingly difficult ones aren't difficult to solve, they're just difficult to execute because of the limited time you have. I never really liked Blodia before, but I did at least have a tiny amount of fun with Blodia Land, which I guess makes it the best of the three Make a Path games. But the fun that I had was just looking at the puzzle at the start, and then just figuring out the solution there. Actually executing those solutions? Well, the interface is a pain to work with. I often misclicked with the cursor not being perfectly lined up with the row or column. And it's really annoying when you know what you have to do, but you can't pull it off because the timing is very tight. This is better than Parallel World and PPAR time, but that's a low bar. And I don't see myself coming back to this one.